Tom Latham made a mistake not putting 9 players on the rope. And if that sounds like it is a ridiculous statement, then he didn't see Jonny Bairstow bat. But before all that happened, England were going to chase 299 in 68 overs. And if there was anything we knew, it was that they were going to go hard, because they promised us they were going to.
This is the last knot. My dad told me to say this.
It was actually weird how much England were willing to tell New Zealand that no matter what they were set, they were going to chase it, regardless of the equation. Because that actually gave a big tactical advantage to New Zealand. But they never capitalised on it because of the 2 run-outs and the many other errors along the way. But England also delivered on their promise. The first over has 3 fours. New Zealand knows that Lees is susceptible to cover driving, and they feed it to him, and he eats them. If New Zealand needed a reminder of how quick the outfield was, they got that fast. But that's followed up by Trent bowling 2 identical 3/4 seam wobble balls, pitching on and around leg stump and going away. Very similar to what he gave Zach Crawley in the first innings. And again, it dismisses Zach Crawley in the second innings. This was a great start for New Zealand, but the following over, Southee struggled again. It was only 5 runs this time, but he clearly wasn't bowling at his best. No one who was watching him could have thought he was. And so Southee was yanked from the attack. I'm not sure if we get that move if Kane Williamson is in charge. Tom Latham just looks a little bit more proactive. It's clearly the right idea, not just because Southee hadn't quite got it right yet, because there had been a strip running down the middle of the pitch with a little bit of grass on it all game long. My guess was that that was starting to crack, and so the curators put a little bit of extra water on it to keep it together. And that's been where the vast majority of the balls this match have misbehaved. And while Southee could certainly hit it, Matt Henry would be better because he hits the wicket a lot more as a seam bowler and is just faster. Henry takes the gloves of Pope and has another one go under the bat entirely. And as good as he is looking, especially after a terrible first innings, you can't help but wonder what Kyle Jamieson would do on this surface. It seems made for a strong, tall, hit-the-wicket bowler. But Jamieson's off watching with a sore back. And so Southee's bad start, while recovered by Henry, still haunts New Zealand a little bit because now they have slightly less options. I wonder if that will... While this is happening, Alex Lees scores England's first 30 runs. If you want a weird stat about today, that's the first time that's ever happened in Test cricket. And England make it to lunch only 1 wicket down with, just over 10% of the chase wiped off and just over 10% of the wickets gone. First ball after the break, they're in trouble again as Pope edges another chance into the cordon. And New Zealand, the best slip fielding team in the world over the last few years, drop another one. And it's Bolt, who was by far the best bowler in this match, and I'm not sure it was particularly close. But the over gets worse as Bolt fires down 4 byes. And it gets worse again because umpire Goff starts looking at the footmarks. And it's not even the only time that he's looked at the footmarks. If Bolt can only bowl around the wicket, that's going to be a huge blow to New Zealand's flexibility as the game goes on, especially with Jamieson's injury and Southee's form. Pope scores a couple of boundaries when Bolt gets a little bit wide. That's the problem on this pitch. If you're not quite perfect, there's no real margin for error. And almost everything seems to go for a boundary because of how quick this outfield is. Henry does get it right though. Ball hits that strip I was talking about before, and instead of inconsistent bounce, it veers away towards the slips and takes the edge. So now Joe Root is in this chase. And it does feel like a little bit Joe Root is this chase. And so when he pushes back up the wicket to a Bolt delivery that seems to grip in the surface for a caught and bowled, that seems to grip in the surface, and he is caught and bowled. Root's gone, and New Zealand are on top. And I mean, after all, it's only Jonny Bairstow coming in, right? It means that they can give Henry and Bolt a quick rest, trying Bracewell against the left-handed Lees. They can come back to Southee. It's clear straight away that Southee is bowling a little bit better. He's pulled his length back, 37 centimetres according to CricViz. It looks better as England look to build a partnership. And he takes the edge of Lees, and England are 93 for 4. But something else happened when Southee was bowling. Bairstow scores his second boundary. His first was just a push through the covers, very conventional. But this one against Southee, he comes down the wicket a little bit, shuffles at him, changes his length, smashes the ball back past him. Soon after, Stokes is doing the same thing against Southee and putting him in the stand. Now England are taking on Bracewell as well with a bunch of reverse sweeps from Stokes. It means New Zealand have to move the field around. They can't rely on Bracewell to keep the economy low. I mean, his first 3 overs had only gone for 10, even when Alex Lees had hit him for a 6. But England couldn't allow their part-time spinner to slow them down. Bairstow is pushing hard here. Stokes is too, but Stokes looks in control. Bairstow looks like he's right on the edge. There's been the inside part of the bat. There's been flashes. Haven't been the best shots. He's desperate to get on top of New Zealand. But it doesn't look like he's right there at the moment. And yet, he's ticking, but the runs aren't coming the way he wants. And yet, it's an incredible game. At this point at tee, all 4 results are in play. And the chance of Jimmy Anderson, having to nail a reverse sweep for victory is still there. Did you get all that? That's analysis. It was an interesting game. At one end, there was an up and down balance. At the other end, you had Southey and Bolt trying to work out how to keep pressure on. Bracewell worked early, and then England worked him out. Latham had been active, and England were trying to work out how to land their counterpunch. This was all proper cricket. Gripping, normal. What we have seen for generations, with a couple of modern touches thrown in. After tea, England would need 160 in 38 overs, and New Zealand would need 6 wickets. It was a winnable match for pretty much every result you're looking for. And then that was completely blown up by a Bairstow bomb. What was left of the game after Bairstow was charred and bloodstained. You'll find chunks of it in the sponsored stand that looks like a dugout behind me. If you want analysis, well, at tea, England decided to try and hit more 6s, and New Zealand thought they'd go with the short ball. And these two ideas met each other like the randiest teenage lovers ruining the back seat of their parents' cars. New Zealand did try some short pitch bowling, but without Wagner or Jameson, it's Henry who tries it. And Wagner was on the field when Henry was bowling his own short theory, but with none of his venom or energy. It was like watching Ringo Starr sing while John Lennon was in the background cleaning the drums. Henry doesn't bowl short often, and in this case, he doesn't do it very well. Bairstow pulls 2 of them to the rope, and then Henry goes too wide, and Stokes lays one, and Stokes takes another bound. Why didn't they just go back to hitting the pitch on the patch of the wicket where the ball was going up and down? That's a question I would ask if I wasn't trying to catch up with the boundaries. And it doesn't stop next over when Bairstow smashes Bolt down the ground for another 6. Before the ball has landed, Bolt changes the field and he puts someone out square despite the fact the boundary went straight. Where is the wide outside off-stump tactic and 7-2 field? Someone probably thinks in the what feels like 20 seconds between boundaries we're now watching. It doesn't stop next over as Henry gets heaved for another 6, then 4 buys off Bairstow's badge, then another 6. Bairstow is now headbutting boundaries. Finally, New Zealand stopped the short ball tactic, but it's already too late. Why don't they go for Yorkers and slow balls? If quite clearly Bairstow has activated Death T20 mode, it's something I write down far later after the contest is already broken. It doesn't stop next over, with Bolt delivering back of a length and Bairstow muscling it over deep mid-wicket. He pulls another one later in the over and then finishes with a sliced 4. Why not bring Daryl Mitchell on as fresh chum so they can at least take the pace off the ball? Screams a New Zealander in their nightmare 2 weeks from now. It doesn't stop next over as Bairstow drives on the up through the offside, then steers one through the cordon. The only mercy seems to be that he has cashed in his 6s to purchase a couple of cheap 4s. Why not get Bracewell to come around the wicket and bowl into the back heel? Suggests a 12-year-old watching a hologram of this game in the year 2076. The truth is, there was no time. New Zealand were trying to put the Hindenburg back together with things they found in their garage. It finally stops, or pauses, or at least slows a tad, because of England. Well, because Stokes injures his knee, and it means for a little while he can't get Bairstow back on strike. And at this point, New Zealand's best chance of winning this game is keeping Stokes on strike in a 4th innings chase for a packed house in England. New Zealand actually almost run out Stokes, who is so desperate to get his friend 100, he forgets that he can't actually run. That's in a Bracewell over that it was actually very well delivered for a part-timer in these circumstances, but does resemble a little bit the band playing as the Titanic sank. There is a moment when Bairstow stops scoring, or slows down, as he looks for a safe option to make his 100. Southey finds a good length for the 2nd straight over, and the personal milestone just makes Bairstow rethink slapping everything to the rope. But he can't stop middling the ball. It's like a mania that he has at the moment. And he finds a gap on the offside and he brings up his 100. Unshackled from the burden of self-gratification, Bairstow decides to end Bracewell. Sweep 6, sweep 6, sweep 4. If anything, I'm shocked that New Zealand didn't ask Bracewell to try and bounce Bairstow. It's around this time that I write, Tom Latham made a mistake by not putting 9 men on the rope. I mean, they should have. In fact, they should have put every single fielder, maybe even Blundell, on the rope and allowed Stokes to come back on strike. Or at the least, made it, 30% harder for Bairstow to hit boundary. And what am I saying? The World Test Championship winner's best chance of actually winning this match was to literally try a method that really only exists like in club cricket, when a team of first-timers go up against another side who happen to have a ringer in it. To have any hope at all, New Zealand would have had to have given up on the pretense that they actually had any belief or plans that could dismiss or even slow Jonny Bairstow and just put everyone out. And it wouldn't have mattered because Bairstow hit it past them, through them, and over them. The field wasn't set, it was destroyed. These were not elite athletes representing their nation, but cardboard cutouts on a toy set that Jonny Bairstow set up in his bedroom. And when he was finished with them, there was nothing left to play with. Jonny Bairstow destroyed the cricket nation, formerly known as New Zealand. Sweep up the pieces you can find, put them in a jar, stick a label on it, and send them to Headingley, where Jonny Bairstow is from. New Zealand made some mistakes along the way. Jonny Bairstow was perfect.